God, please let what I say come from you through me and out to others. Amen.
Amen.
So my dad was a used car salesman, and he taught me a couple things that really kind of shaped the person that I am today. One of the first things I remember he said to me that really kind of stuck was, he said, Jamie, if anyone ever says, trust me, that's a sure sign that you need to be careful. It's because when somebody says, trust me, it's usually their first step in trying to deceive you. The other line that I really loved was this one. He said, just keep this in mind. It's unethical to have a battle of wits with the unarmed. So reminded me of the gospel today and what Jesus had to say. So Jerusalem was a pretty fast-paced environment of the day, and the followers of all the Pharisees were jockeying for position. They were trying to be like the next big disciple, vying for the privilege that would come to them if they, found favor with the temple leaders. So they were pretty eager to do something, even about getting their hands dirty. They were going to win favor, and power was up for grabs. So they plot. In the gospel, the disciples of the Pharisees, together with the Herodians, anybody watch Star Trek Voyager? It's not the Herodians. Okay? It sticks with me. They all went to ask him some questions. They were trying to trick Jesus into saying something that would get him in trouble. And I thought, if I were to put the gospel into more modern language, it might sound something like this. Hey, Jesus, listen, we know you're a really smart guy. And we know, you teach in the temple. And we know that you put a lot of stock in the truth. So we need your opinion. I mean, seriously, if we're supposed to give everything to God, is it even lawful to pay taxes? Should we pay taxes? Jesus doesn't miss a beat. Not at all. He says, bring me a denarius. He says, whose face is on here? What office does he hold? That's the emperor, and he's the emperor. That's whose face that is, and he's who we follow. He says, all right. Give to the emperor what's due to the emperor. Give to God what is due to God. There was no battle of wits here. It was kind of like a slam dunk of words. Jesus won. Pharisee minions 0. So what's God done for you lately? What is it that we have to give back to God that God hasn't already given to us? Giving things back to God, I think of it like this. I get invited to somebody's house for dinner. So on the way up the sidewalk, I pick some flowers that are planted along the sidewalk, and I get to the door, and I said, look, thank you for inviting me. I brought you some flowers. Aren't they beautiful? I mean, you planted them. I invite you to plant them. Everything we have comes from God. Therefore, what we have to give back to God has already been given to us. And that's love. That's all it is. Love is one of the only entities that we experience in this life that breaks the rules of the laws of nature. The more we give it away, the more we have. That's very different from what we know as a consumer, as somebody who consumes something and then it's gone. The more we give away love, the more love we have. Difficult perspective for us. There are some difficult things that we're going to talk about today. There's some other difficult topics, and does anybody know what the 5th dimension is besides a rock group from the 60s, dawning of the age of Aquarius, which, by the way, I understand we are actually living in the age of Aquarius right now? Well, fasten your seatbelts, because I'm going to give you a science lesson in the middle of my sermon. And then we'll see whether or not it's done any good to explain to you the gospel's message. So let's give this a try. If you have a cube, kind of like this one, okay? And you kick the cube across the floor. something like this, just sort of. There are 4 dimensions at play. There is height and width and the depth of the cube. You can see them on the cube itself. Anybody know what the 4th dimension is? Time. There you go. Time. Now you can't see time, but you understand from the cube moving from one place to another that time has passed. You can see the cube itself, but the 4th dimension is time. We can't see time, but the progression and distance is probably as close to seeing time as we're going to get. You can't see time, but we can see the effects of time. I don't know. Anybody in here wrinkling with me? Yeah, every time I look in the mirror. I said to them this morning when it was raining, I said, yeah, I feel the effects of time. Every time it rains, I'm kind of reminded. So, the 5th dimension, that's 4 dimensions. The 5th dimension is what's known as a micro-dimension. This is a scientific thing. Again, in the 5th dimension is not part of what we understand as the 4 that are part of our fabric of space and time. Physicists were trying to connect all of the fundamental forces known to the universe, like gravity and electromagnetism. And in trying to do this, they did these calculations, and they know that this 5th micro-dimension exists, but all the calculations were imperfect in some way. Still, they used that calculation in everything, in mathematics and physics. They used it to link those forces together, even though they seem unrelated. We can't see the 5th dimension, and the reason they tell us that is that it's on a higher plane than we're on. It exists somewhere we cannot be. Because of this, we can't really study it. We can't prove its existence. Yet they use those 5th dimension calculations in all kinds of scientific experiments and advancements. It's a lot. Let me review this. We can't see time, but we can see the impact time has on us and other earthly things. Is that right? Okay. We can't see, study, or really prove the existence of the 5th dimension because it operates on a higher plane than we do. But the scientific community accepts it and uses its calculations. Now, what if we replace those 2 words, time and 5th dimension, with the word God? I think we would find a big connection between God and science. We cannot see God, but we can certainly see the impact that God has on us and on the whole world. You can't study or prove that God exists because God operates on a plane higher than we are. But spiritual communities and we ourselves make decisions and make choices, taking God into consideration. So, how does this help understand the gospel, Jane? No. Jesus keeps trying to tell us this. We can't see time, but we know it exists because we see the results in the world. I see the results when I look in a mirror. We can't see God, but we know God exists because we can see the effect of God's actions in us, on us, and in how God impacts the world. God is the force of all creation, and God is love. So, all this to say, God has given us love. And if we are to give back to God what God has given us, then we are to give love to God. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and love your neighbors as yourselves. Love your neighbors as Christ has loved you. All we need to do to give back to God what God's given to us is to love one another in everything that we do. That means we're supposed to give love every day. And it's the most important message I can give you. I don't know if this is true. When I was a kid, I was talking to my sister Cheryl, and I said, Cheryl, what is the 5th dimension? And she said, and this is arguably one of the things that people have called this, she said, the fifth dimension is something that's fifth dimensional, is something smaller on the outside and bigger on the inside. Now, if you've ever read Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, that's what their tents were. They were tiny on the outside, but inside they were huge. Harry Potter's Quidditch match. The tents in Harry Potter, tiny on the outside, palatial on the inside. Do you know what else is tiny on the outside, but huge on the inside? We are. I mean, considering the universe, we are minute, minuscule, tiny, tiny. But inside of us, our capacity to love is beyond measure, beyond our wildest dreams. All we have to do is break those laws of nature and give it away. Give away the love that God has given us. I don't know if it's a sermon or if it's a science lesson. But I'll tell you, we can see the impact of things that we can't see, and we do accept them as truth. Maybe take home from the sermon what it was that spoke to your soul or what it was that spoke to your mind. But if I had to give you a little homework, I say this week, give away as much love as you can. Remember to just be as kind as you can possibly be. Pause before you open your mouth sometimes. Just remember to give love away. And then see how much it expands your world at the end. Amen.